But Greg, before we run out of time, I know you called about pesticides. I have to say, you changed my tune on it based on our last conversation, but I know you had a pretty successful meeting. Why don't you go ahead and tell us what you have on your plate regarding the pesticides, the request for a ban?
Well, we did have a good meeting, and people are very concerned about this. People who know about it. I mean, I advise everyone to go, on the web and look up Tordon 101 or look up CAP-NL and inform yourself about these things. The minister is saying that, they go by Health Canada guidelines, and that's fine for them. But if Health Canada says it's fine, well, it's fine with us. That's not good enough for Newfoundland and Newfoundland's children. Health Canada is not protecting anyone in this regard. Health Canada has just fired 3 whistleblowers who tried to bring it to heel about very un-environmental practices that were going on. We have up in Labrador, Paddy, we got deadly, lethal effluent flowing out of Valley into the ocean in Labrador. No one really cares about it. The environmental guy who was, you were talking about this, the guy who didn't do his job. He was afraid he was going to, upset Valley by reporting lethal effluent. That's the kind of protection we have in Newfoundland. People are afraid of these corporations. They're afraid, they're afraid to talk about, practically afraid to talk about helicopter safety going out to the rigs. They're afraid to talk about lethal effluent being spewed out all over Newfoundland by Valley. Valley doesn't care. Now they're planning to put power lines through Muskrat Falls and all kinds of new mining developments up on the West Labrador. They're going to, soak it with neurotoxins to destroy all vegetation on the power line. And what will be spewing out of those mines? We have the lowest possible standards for environmental safety for mines, I think, in the world. We've just turned Sandy Lake into a toxic waste. Now, there's ways of doing this. You can have concrete containment pens and that sort of stuff. It's a little more expensive, but of course it's much safer, much more environmentally friendly, and there's ways of doing these things in an environmentally safe way, but it's a little more expensive, so they don't want to do it in Newfoundland. Cheap is good enough for us. Cheap, off-the-shelf neurotoxins and chemical deadly sprays. That's a cheap way to go, and we're going the cheap way. We're going the cheap way to hell. Labrador will be nothing but a running sewer of toxic waste. If we don't put in some standards now, it's not good enough in the 21st century to be soaking ourselves year after year in neurotoxins. And I got to remind everyone out there, we talk about loving our children, and I'm sure we do love our children, but we're not taking care of our children. They're obese. They're not being educated. They go to moldy classrooms, bust there over roads. They're graduated. They're functionally illiterate. Our children are functionally illiterate, not able to put together a sentence or write an essay question when they get to university. That's the standard of education here. And now we're dumbing them down with neurotoxins. All these neurotoxins. The interesting thing is, we have the highest cancer rates in Canada here, and we have escalating rates of neurobehavioral problems with our children. You can see the lineups for Ritalin outside every vice principal's office in every school in Newfoundland. Those lineups weren't there before. They were lined up to get the strap before, and they're lined up to get Ritalin.
Yeah.
We have a very bad situation here in Newfoundland. Do we love our children? Are we going to protect their brains? All these neurotoxins, all scientists around the world say they're dumbing us down. And you have the diseases that you noticed that you can diagnose, like ADD, autism, and the other ones. And there's a whole host of them and new names for them every day as they're discovering more and more. But underneath that threshold of diagnosable diseases, there's a whole range of disease and discomfort that's not diagnosed, perhaps not even noticed by people as they get dumbed down. So do we want to be dumbed down here in Newfoundland? I think that's the last thing we need. Why can't we get ahead of the ball here and ahead of the curve and do something that's innovative and creative and modern for a change, rather than be hauling the same old solution off the shelf as we did in World War II? We're hauling the same drugs, DDT and 2,4-D. We're hauling off the shelf these World War II vintage neurotoxins, very dangerous ones, and we're dumping them by the ton on us and our children. Don't say the children aren't getting them into their system because there's no way to keep them out. And I say children, even though it's every animal on the province is getting a nice lethal dose here, or not lethal dose, a nice toxic dose of 2,4-D. And we can all add that to our blood system and our cells because it's measurable. It's actually measurable in your blood. You know, if you're eating, for instance, if you're eating commercial vegetables, they can measure the amount of the pesticides, organophosphate pesticides, the kind they spray on vegetables. They can measure that in your blood. And if you give up commercially grown vegetables and eat like your own or local or organic stuff for a month or so, you do your blood again and it's gone.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean,
but other stuff doesn't go, like this 2,4-D, and this lingers. So.
Well, I guess it's either thanks to you, or you certainly contributed to not only me understanding it a little bit more, but actually I think it's a mindset thing for the general public. They have this built-in belief of Health Canada and the guidelines put forward by, whether it be environmental assessments and otherwise. I never gave pesticides much thought. I really didn't. When it came to residential use, I just bought what I thought would help protect my investment and got rid of the weed or the bug or whatever else was around. Yeah. And now I just think differently about it, and until everybody starts to think differently, governments can hide behind the regulations and protections that they pretend to put forward. I think it's kind of maddening when you see the cycle and the circular nature of the regulation and what is actually going on. Greg, I've enjoyed the conversation immensely. I'm way over time for the break, but you're always welcome to stay in touch at your convenience.
Well, Paddy, thanks a lot for calling. I really appreciate it. And like yourself, I was not really as aware when I started in this as I am now. And every week I get more upset, and I think that the people in government really should be as educated as I am. And if they were as informed as I am, or as people are becoming, they couldn't do these things to their own people, their own children. That's what I keep thinking. So information is the key. And yeah, I will be calling back. Thanks a lot for talking about it here this morning.
Appreciate your time. Stay in touch.
Okay, Paddy.
Thanks, Greg.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.